Hey everybody, good morning. This is Tim, Ozark Tim, and I'm at the Pea Ridge military battlefield site where I believe it's I want to say 1863, there was a major battle here. At the time, there's 11 official Confederate states, but Missouri, some of their politicians had voted to be part of the Confederacy, but there was another one, I can't remember which politician it was, that was trying to keep them into the Union. And so there was a bit of a battle royale going on for Missouri and what they were up to. My sense is that, like Bleeding Kansas, it was a fairly divided state with abolitionists and, people who wanted to maintain slavery or just maintain states' rights, etc. But anyway, there was a battle basically over whether or not Missouri would stay in the Union or go Confederate, and the Union or the Federals prevailed, and Missouri stayed out of the Confederacy. Although there's a lot of violence here. That's why we get the word Bleeding Kansas, because of the struggle between the abolitionists and the people who were sympathetic toward the states' rights or slaveholding, depending on your situation. Most people could not afford to own slaves, so it's not like everyone was a slaveholder. And of course, like in any war, different people have different motivations for staying in or staying out. So I'm standing here at the site of Leetown. I'm just gonna scan across. It's basically an open field and a lot of oak trees. You can see a lot of grass. You can kind of see the fencing, the split rail fencing they got everywhere. So they've really kept it authentic looking. But I'm just kind of swing around here so you get a sense of what's going on. So a lot of hickory trees, if you're wondering. Cedar, the evergreens are cedars. I believe Eastern cedar, I think. Really nice aromatic wood. Some hickory, elm, oak, a lot of oak, it seems like in here. But anyway, I know about the woods well because I've been chopping them ever since we moved here, especially since we moved into our house in last July. But fortunately, we've been able to burn a lot of wood and not turn on the electricity for the heat. So we have electrical heat and no gas at all. So I don't have a gas bill anymore, which is great. I just have an electric bill. And, it's pretty high in the summer because we're running the air conditioning all the time because of the humidity. But that won't be the case this summer because we're gone. We're coming to you, West Coast. Anyway, I'm here because this was the site of a field hospital. Apparently, all this area used to be like a little town. They call it a hamlet. Um, it had a school and some cabins and a few other things that would make up a hamlet or a really dinky little town. But apparently, there was a big yellow house somewhere in this vicinity, in this open area. And it was basically the field hospital that the Union, actually both sides, had their soldiers, wounded soldiers, coming into it. And they apparently set up little yellow ribbons or markers to mark the way for the walking wounded. But apparently it was, you can just imagine, Civil War field hospital. I heard the other day, the figure of people who were killed in the Civil War. It's over 1 million. It was a huge, devastating war. And here at Pea Ridge in the open area, which I'll show you later, the field commander of the artillery, I can't remember his name. He was from Germany. He basically had all the cannons, field artillery lined up, and they just fired straight into the Confederate like a wall of steel and shrapnel. And there's a quote from him where he's looking through his telescope or his field glass or binoculars, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've blown apart horses and men." And it sounds like it, and it just totally lowered the morale of the Confederate forces here. I think he had like 10,000. The Union guy had 10,000 men arrayed against the Confederates, so it was a devastating blow. But here in the West, they fought hard. I was listening to Shelby Foote, who, um, if you've seen Ken Burns' Civil War series, came out before 2000, I know, I think. Shelby Foote was the Southerner who had the goatee, the great goatee, and he had that really nice drawl, like he's from Alabama or something like that. Talk real gentle, like. real soft. But he was saying in an interview, I think on NPR, that his only criticism about Ken Burns' film, and he loved it, he was really happy to be part of it, was that they didn't do more about the Western campaigns, because he said so much went on in the West that was not reported. And I'm telling you, since moving out here and seeing all these battlefields, Oklahoma, I had no idea of the Indian involvement, the Cherokee Indian involvement, and that the last surrender, even if it was even after Appomattox, when Robert E. Lee was at Appomattox Courthouse with Grant, it was a Cherokee Indian chief who was the last Confederate. I think it was July of 1865. He was the last Confederate to give up, surrender. I was just shocked. I said, what? And then I learned that the Cherokee actually had slaves. They had black slaves. I mean, it's interesting, when you start asking real people about the real events and you're away from all the propaganda stuff, you start to learn so much more about history. I mean, I learned a lot last week about the Cajun history, and I ate gator meat with my grandson, and man, we were totally immersed. And isn't that what history teaching should be all about, is just immersing yourself in it and loving it. I remember my grandfather used to lay in his trailer when we would go on vacation in Montana, and he would read book after book after book about Custer, Chief Joseph. He loved history, anything about Custer he loved, and he loved Indian history, and he was totally cognizant of the fact that they were mistreated. And he would drop by near the roadside signs in Montana, like, for instance, I remember him showing us the Chief Joseph sign, because Chief Joseph, when he was running away from Oregon, his main home was the Wallowa Mountains in northeast Oregon, and he made this incredible escape down through Hell's Canyon. Now, if you've ever been to Hell's Canyon, it's like the deepest canyon, I think, at least in the United States, maybe the world. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon. It's not as wide, it's not as spectacular, but it's deep. The Snake River's at the bottom of it. I've seen it. I've been at the top of it and looked down. It's a deep, deep canyon. And he took men, women, children, horses down that canyon and back up. I do not see how he did it. I mean, the guy was amazing. And, the sad thing was, as I believe he converted to Christianity, before all this mayhem happened to his tribe. And, you think, what if he would have been treated with more respect, and he would have seen in the white military leaders a little more humanity? Because, if you just read the book Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, if you have any doubts about the Indians' mistreatment, I mean, they were lied to. I'm not saying they were perfect. They kept slaves, and they killed each other, and they kidnapped people, and they murdered people, and they raped people, and all kinds of horrid things they did. I'm not saying they're sinless, but let's get on the right side of history and understand what went on. But anyway, Chief Joseph went through Montana, and Yellowstone Park I think it had just become a national park, and he scared the bejeebies out of the tourists that were there to see. Oh, let's look at Old Faithful. Who's that talking about? What's that tribe? Oh, Nez Perce Indians. Oh, my good. Get in the back. Get in the wagon. Come on. Can you imagine? But anyway, my grandfather would pull over the side and say, boys, read and learn, and he would teach us, and it was great. I think that's why I still to this day have a love for history of any kind. I'm going to Austria in not this summer but the next, and I'm going to reread some books I have on Austrian history, just because when I go somewhere, I want to know about it. Like here, I even want to take a geology class. I think they let you, when you're 62, or I can't remember the cutoff, but you can actually take college classes for free. So I'm going to avail myself of that opportunity and take a geography and geology class of Arkansas, because I'm fascinated by this. Man, there is this red kind of I don't know if it's limestone or what, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I just got done rototilling and preparing this area above our septic field for some grass. I mean, I dug out so many of those. I'll take a picture of the piles we made. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I got to move on. I'm on my bike. It's freezing cold. I think it was about 28 degrees, and the wind's blowing, so I know there's a wind chill, so I can feel it on my face. I don't want my nose to freeze off like some Arctic explorer or Everest survivor with a black nose forever. So anyway, I'll say goodbye and I'll show you some more of this battle. Hey, I'm back again. I've gone up the road a bit on my bicycle. You can see it's a beautiful sunny blue day today, and it's getting a little warmer. The wind's died down a bit, so my nose isn't feeling as frosty as it was before. Hey, I'm at the site of a battle which pitted something like 7,000 Confederates that were crammed on this little road over beyond those trees. There's a road they were walking along. You can kind of see it in the distance there, and then perhaps you can see the cannons there. I'll see if I can zoom in. I guess I can't. Anyway, there's some cannons there in the distance, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cannons, and way over there in the trees, there were 700 Iowa boys, Federals, Union troops, Northern troops, in those trees. Okay, and so 7,000 over here crammed on this road, including 300 cavalry on horses, Confederates. Okay, so 7,000 against 300 over there. Well, Confederates took their cannons and aimed them over there at the Federals, and they had quite a heyday. So, the last place I was at, I told you that there was, I told you kind of what the ultimate victory was with the Union, that they had the ultimate victory at the last field I'll show you of battle. But over here, man, it was the Confederates' day. 7,000 Confederates, 300 cavalry among them, against 300 poor guys from Iowa. If my brother-in-law or sister-in-law from Pella, Iowa are listening, hey, I'm sorry, this just wasn't your day. The Texan or the Confederates were composed of guys from Arkansas and Texas. It was a combined force. So anyway, this is kind of what the 360 degrees looks like here as I'm going around. You can kind of get a sense of field of battle. And it's just so wonderful how they preserve these historic battlefields. So you don't really get a sense of war, the Civil War and the Napoleonic tactics, and the kind of what it would feel like to be in that field and have those cannons over there, blow into you shrapnel above your head, or some of them were designed so that the cannonball was actually bounce across the ground and take your leg off, or put a hole in your abdomen. I mean, it was awful, awful, awful. It's no wonder that over 1 million people died in that war. It was us against our brother, us against our cousin, us Irishmen against Irishmen, Scottish man against Scottish men. When I was a reenactor for the 79th New York in Oregon, which was a Scottish regiment, they basically would take entire blocks of men from, say, a block in New York, and that would be your regiment, the 79th New York. And if you were in a battle like this, where cannons were faced, you had 7,000 against 300, your entire neighborhood would be gone. Can you imagine? You go back to New York City. Hey, where's Johnny? Where's Tom? Where's Scott? Oh, there is no neighborhood boys anymore. That entire block of boys, of men, they're gone. They're eliminated. Just think about the devastation of that. Of your entire neighborhood of boys is vanished because of one battle. Because it's you against those things, and 3,000 guns and horses coming at you at full speed with swords drawn and pistols, firing. I mean, man, to live as long as I've lived and to have not encountered warfare, it's the exception rather than the rule. I think of my friend Spishik over in Ukraine right now, not just any old place in Ukraine, but eastern Ukraine, where all the hell is breaking loose. And I saw him he's been sending these video clips of, women talking about losing their homes and walking through these bombed out shells of their homes, and talking about how they were born here in this neighborhood, and the entire towns have vacated. And there's just a few people left in the town because they're so frightened of what's going to happen next, and they've gone, they've hightailed it to another safer place or gone to Poland or wherever else they can find refuge. I'll tell you one. I'll tell you, I'm a big advocate of controls on the border and making sure the right people come in and the wrong people stay out. But I have a heart for the immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I'm a son of an immigrant. I have a heart, especially for people who need shelter from crazy madmen like Putin, the idiot, the narcissistic idiot. And hey, we've got our own narcissistic idiots in our country too, through our history. So I'm not saying we have the immunity idol or anything like that from that. Every country has got its issues. Every tribe, every tongue has its history of goodness and of tyranny and of ugliness and of beauty. It's person to person, isn't it? So anyway, it's quite a day. It's warming up. I think I better get on the road because I got things to do, places to go. But I'll show you a few other places that are pretty incredible. You can kind of see it in the distance there, and then perhaps you can see the cannons there. I'll see if I can zoom in. I guess I can't. Anyway, there's some cannons there in the distance, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cannons, and way over there in the trees, there were 700 Iowa boys, Federals, Union troops, Northern troops, in those trees, okay? And so 7,000 over here crammed on this road, including 300 cavalry on horses, Confederates, okay? So 7,000 against 300 over there. Well, the Confederates took their cannons and aimed them over there at the Federals, and they had quite a heyday. So the last place I was at, I told you that there was, I told you kind of what the ultimate victory was with the Union, that they had the ultimate victory at the last field I'll show you of battle. But over here, man, it was the Confederates' day. 7,000 Confederates, 300 cavalry among them, against 300 poor guys from Iowa. If my brother-in-law or sister-in-law from Pella, Iowa are listening, hey, I'm sorry, this just wasn't your day. The Confederates were composed of guys from Arkansas and Texas. It was a combined force. So anyway, this is kind of what the 360 degrees looks like here. As I'm going around, you can kind of get a sense of the field of battle. And it's just so wonderful how they preserve these historic battlefields. So you don't really get a sense of war, the Civil War and the Napoleonic tactics, and the kind of what it would feel like to be in that field and have those cannons over there, blow into you shrapnel above your head, or some of them were designed so that the cannonball would actually bounce across the ground and take your leg off, or put a hole in your abdomen. I mean, it was awful. It's no wonder that over 1 million people died in that war, and it was us against our brother, us against our cousin, us Irishmen against Irishmen, Scottish man against Scottish men. When I was a reenactor for the 79th New York in Oregon, which was a Scottish regiment, they basically would take entire blocks of men from, say, a block in New York, and that would be your regiment, the 79th New York. And if you were in a battle like this, where cannons were faced, you had 7,000 against 300, your entire neighborhood would be gone. Can you imagine? You go back to New York City, hey, where's Johnny? Where's Tom? Where's Scott? Oh, there is no neighborhood of boys anymore. That entire block of boys, of men, they're gone. They're eliminated. Just think about the devastation of that, of your entire neighborhood of boys is vanished because of one battle, because it's you against those things, and 3,000 guns and horses coming at you at full speed with swords drawn and pistols, firing. I mean, man, to live as long as I've lived and to have not encountered warfare, it's the exception rather than the rule. I think of my friend Spishik over in, Ukraine right now. Not just any old place in Ukraine, but eastern Ukraine, where all the hell is breaking loose. And I saw him on, he's been sending these video clips of, women talking about losing their homes and walking through these bombed out shells of their homes and talking about how they were born here in this neighborhood, and the entire towns have vacated. And there's just a few people left in the town because they're so frightened of what's going to happen next. And they've gone, they've hightailed it to another safer place, or gone to Poland or wherever else they can find refuge. I'll tell you, I'm a big advocate of controls on the border and making sure the right people come in and the wrong people stay out. But I have a heart for the immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I'm a son of an immigrant. I have a heart, especially for people who need shelter from crazy madmen like Putin, the idiot, the narcissistic idiot. And hey, we've got our own narcissistic idiots in our country too, through our history. So I'm not saying we have the immunity idol or anything like that from that. Every country has got its issues. Every tribe, every tongue has its history of goodness and of tyranny and of ugliness and of beauty. It's person to person, isn't it? So anyway, it's quite a day. It's warming up. I think I better get on the road because I got things to do, places to go. But I'll show you a few other places that are pretty incredible as I move along here. Okay, so I'm here at Pea Ridge, and I met this wonderful group of runners. And are you all from Rogers?
We're from Rogers, and we're the Soul Riders Runners.
Soul Riders and Runners. And are you all, where's your family originally from?
He's from Guatemala.
Guatemala, okay, so Central America. And Maria?
North of Mexico. Durango.
Durango?
Durango over here too.
Durango? Is that like a province or a
No, that's
area?
the same from La Parrilla is my little town.
Okay, so there's a Durango, Colorado, but this is Durango. Okay, and how about you?
Durango, Mexico.
Okay, what's your name?
Brenda.
Oh, no, what was your name? I didn't get that.
Cristina.
Okay. Okay, and this is Maria. We just sang Maria from West Side Story.
Yeah.
And then
Durango, Angeles.
Angeles? Angeles,
Yeah.
okay.
Angeles, Guerrero, Mexico.
Guerrero? Guerrero. Ooh, Acapulco. And this.
I'm Lauren from Durango, Mexico.
All right.
My name is Eva.
So, what do you think of the Civil War history?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Here, all this, I imagine that time, all the fields, all the battle, all the dead people, it's a lot of history here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
We thank for all the people there.
Oh man, did you know over 1 million people died in the Civil War? It's amazing. And look at this field out here. It's like so vast. And I don't know. Have you all ever heard about Gettysburg? Have you heard of Gettysburg? So in 1863, there was a big battle in Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, and a lot of people died. It's where Lincoln did his Gettysburg Address, 7 years ago. So these rocks down here, they're down here. These rocks down here, in Gettysburg, there's a place just like this, and the soldiers were climbing up these rocks trying to get to the high ground where the Union troops are at.
Yeah.
So the Confederates had to climb up through stuff like this, and they called it Devil's Den because it was so dangerous. And I think a similar thing happened here, if I remember right, where the soldiers were stuck up. Some of the soldiers were up here, but other soldiers down there were trying to come up and get them. But isn't that scary? Look at there's vultures over there.
Yeah.
Look at those vultures.
And who wins this battle? Who wins?
Ultimately the Union won, but there's a battlefield in the distance where there was 7,000. And that little battle, because I think it was a 2-day battle, but ultimately this battle was about let me turn this around. It was about keeping Missouri in the Union. So Missouri, the state above us, they wanted many of it in the state wanted to be in the Confederacy.
Yeah.
But there was a couple politicians or a governor or something that wanted them to stay in the Union.
In the
so
Union.
they
Oh, yeah.
so they wanted to be. I think Kentucky also was another state that
Yeah.
wanted to be in the Confederacy.
Yeah.
But anyway, they so they fought this big battle here at Pea Ridge to keep Missouri in the Union.
And what's the act that they do here? Like, you know, like.
I mean, I'm part of that.
Oh, you.
It'll happen. I think it happens in December.
December. Okay.
They might. I don't know. Bye bye. Adios. Okay. Nice to meet you. Okay. All right. Have a good time. Okay. Bye bye. Nice to meet you. All right. Hope to see you again. Hasta luego. All right. There they go. This is what I love about just spontaneous stuff that you do. It's like here I am riding my bike in what everybody told me was going to be like this racist state. And there has been racism here. Don't get me wrong. Look online at the city of Harrison. There's some ugly stuff that went on there. And everybody knows about it. In fact, it's funny. More white people here have told me about the racism that they've observed either at their workplace, culturally, historically. And I've been really trying to uncover kind of the experiences of people, whether they're Mexicans or Guatemalans or black people. I got in a conversation. So it's actually an ongoing conversation I have with the black guy that works at our post office in Bella Vista. And I sort of broke the ice with him because he was kind of I don't know if grumpy is the word. He's just kind of straightforward. He has this spiel he gives about, we want stamps, passport, and he goes on. And one time I came in there, I was sending something to Japan. I knew it was going to be expensive. And I said, hey, I heard you got a sale on things going to Japan. And he kind of looked at me. He broke a smile. And after that, he's like been totally cool with me. I ask him about his grandkids all the time. But I asked him once, kind of under my breath when I was paying for some shipping, have you experienced racism here? And he paused and he said, a little bit from older people, he said, but younger people, no, it's older people. So what that tells me is there are vestiges of, that sentiment, that ugly sentiment of racism and, or whatever, maybe somebody had a bad experience with black people or something. I don't know. But I'm finding that people here are really honest about stuff like that. And on the other hand, I meet a Mexican guy at a furniture store, and I help him load up because it was really heavy, and his wife had just gotten out of surgery. And he was taking something to a church in Berryville, which is not too far from here. And he told me that he's got white people and Mexican people or Hispanic people at his church. And he actually told me that the white people help him with his church more than his own people. And that these people who come to his church, it's an Assemblies of God church, I think. So it's, it's charismatic type of church. He told me that these white people come to his church even though the only way they can hear the word of God is through translator. It's just stuff like that. It just blows my mind. It just, it's like God brings you somewhere and tell you, and the TV channels tell you, this is how racism here and racism there, and we got it all figured out. And, you live on the left coast and where people are lunatics and they think they've got it all figured out. And they themselves are those close-minded people who actually analyze it. It's either their way or the highway. And find out when you're out of it, when you're away from it, and you're in another environment, you kind of find out A, not everyone thinks the way that they do, and it's a blessing to get away from it. B, you find your own people, and for me, my own people are people with a Christian worldview. And how refreshing it is to be around a majority of people who have that worldview. I mean, I can't even tell you. This lady, just a minute ago, this Mexican lady, she's Catholic, she told me. The first question she asked me, what church do you go to? Who asks that as the first question? And she's asking a white guy. I mean, it's just amazing. And then I just broke out into song and sang Maria for all of them. And they were just I think they were shocked that this little interlude happened. Anyway, my adventure continues. I'm back again down the road. I just passed Hispanic ladies. There's a restroom up there, and I should say Hispanic ladies and one guy. So I had a really nice visit with them. They were so friendly. Um, I was trying out with some of my Spanish that I haven't used for a long time, and I was mixing Spanish with Russian because I know more Russian than I know Spanish. It's funny when you know a little bit of one language and more of the other. You sometimes just go into this mode where you just try to use whatever you can use. So I'm here at this area here. This is a. Let me see if I get the sun. Okay, so this is it says Gray Major General E. Van Doren, I think. Van Dorn, commander of the Army of the Southwest. So this must be a memorial, I guess, to him. But on the other side, it has these words, and they are admittedly kind of difficult to read, but I'll try. And there's like it says Angel Aloft, and there's, let me go back here. It's kind of hard with the sun, but there's this kind of woman figure. Although, I mean, that's bad theology. There's no evidence that women are angelic beings. They're the only angels I know all have male names, so I'm just assuming all the angels are, if you will, male type figures. Although, you know, Adam was created in the image of God as a male, so that tells me that God is a masculine figure. Now, if you have a problem with that, then you have a problem with the Bible. I'm sorry. Women were made out of man to be a man's helpers, and together they would rule their environment, which at that time was the Garden of Eden. And you know, God gave them jobs to do, and the jobs were not part of the curse. The curse came later, and anyway, that's a whole nother episode about, you know, the whole gender thing and how it all started and has its root in Genesis, and how far we've gotten away from its original created intent. So anyway, let me try to read this to you. This is what it looks like. Again, it's difficult to read because the writing is not really deeply embedded, but it says, Spirit of eternal something, keep silent vigil over I don't know, the unvarnished blue, the unsullied gray, in peace and love unite. Okay, so it's kind of a wish for the blue and the gray to come back together eventually and have peace. That's good. Proud, something, endeavored. Man, it's hard to read. It's like not deeply ingrained in it. You know, I'll tell you what, I'm going to look this up, and maybe I'll post what it says on the bottom of this little video clip. But anyway, I'm going to pause this and then come back to this video after I move over here to this tavern, which you can kind of see in the distance there. Because there's an interesting story about the role that played during the 2 or 3 days. I think it was a 2-day battle here in March, I believe of 1863, March of 1863. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, but I think that's it. So anyway, I'm going to pause it right there. Okay, I am back again, and there's a house in front of me, which I'll show you in a minute. It's called the Elkhorn Tavern. There it is right there. Okay. And if I swing around over here, there's my trusty steed bicycle. If I swing around over here, you can kind of see that cannon in the distance, and then all the split rail fencing you can kind of see in this area. So this is the area I'm in, and there in the distance are those 2 white memorials that I was just talking about. And I guess this is an oak tree, but isn't that amazing? Just waiting to leaf out. You know, it's early. It's almost spring. Cold. I still feel the wind chill. I'm guessing it's like a 25-degree wind chill, maybe. And my hands, I still need to put pretty heavy gloves on. Anyway, Let me just read what the sign says, and then I'll walk over to the house. It says, Lifeline for two armies. Okay, and this is the sign I'm looking at. And it says, there's a map. There's Pea Ridge there. Here's the Missouri border. We actually live right here in Bella Vista. And then here's Missouri. So Kansas City would be up this area. And St. Louis is over here. Illinois is here. And then you got Tennessee here. The Mississippi River running along here. Right? I think that's right. And then, so Missouri, Arkansas, northwest Arkansas, Pea Ridge, where I'm at today. St. Louis is up here. Okay. So it says, I'll just read it. It says, let's see. It says, Elkhorn Tavern overlooks a highway of vital importance for Arkansas and Missouri during the Civil War. Union and Confederate leaders both wanted this 20-foot wide dirt road to move men and supplies. Alongside the road ran 3-year-old telegraph wires, the latest way to send information far and fast. In the week before battle broke out here, both armies had hurriedly marched southward past this crossroads and tavern. The night before the shooting started, Union troops from Missouri set up a small rear guard outpost here. Soldiers had stockpiled food in the barn and tavern. Provost guards watched a handful of captured Confederates nearby. And then just this little thing here, it says, first built in the 1820s as a military road to link St. Louis, Missouri to Fort Smith, Arkansas. The highway served as the northern route of the Trail of Tears during Indian removals in 1837 to 1839. It was known as the Butterfield Overland Stage Route from 1858 to 1861. Civil War troops call it the Wire Road or the Telegraph Road. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. I had heard about the Butterfield Stage before, and of course I know about the Trail of Tears. My wife has a great grandmother, and she's Cherokee, so she's got some Cherokee blood. I keep telling her she should try to get reparations from Joe Biden, but she's laughs me off. But I'm serious. I think she should go for it. Maybe send all of our kids to college for free. Of course, it needs to be a good college, that doesn't push propaganda on the children. It lets them think, independently. So anyway, here's the house, the tavern. Look at the antlers. They're swinging in the wind. They look like elk horns up there. Oh well, hey, it's the Elkhorn Tavern. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So, and I'll just walk around here. Last time I was here with Sabrina, we looked in. It's probably too dark for you guys to see it, but if you look in there, there's like they got it all set up, but you can't go in there. That's kind of cool. It's like a wheelchair ramp, kind of done in a period way. Okay, so here you got this massive stone fireplace. Look at this thing. And back behind here, again, it's interesting here. There's evergreens here. There's cedar. I want to say they're eastern cedar, but man, when I cut into them with my saw or axe or whatever, they have got the most aromatic scent of any cedar, way more than western cedar, which is what I'm used to in Oregon. But they kind of look like arborvitae, sort of. That's what they remind me of. But anyway, it's kind of what keeps things green here is the evergreen stuff. And then you've got the deciduous oak and other hardwoods, hickory, oak, elm, black walnut, and other stuff. But trust me, I've been cutting. I can tell you which are the fun things to cut through and what's not so fun. So anyway, also another interesting thing. Oh, look, they've got those little balls, that come off the trees. We used to throw these at each other when I was a kid. They really hurt when they're green. They really hurt when they're green. My brother can tell you that because I used to pay with him. We used to throw crab apples at each other in Montana. We used to take them off my my cousin or aunt's tree. Actually, it was my great grandma's tree in Big Timber. But yeah, think, what would I do if my grandkids started taking all the fruit off my fruit trees, man? I'd be so mad. Hey, this looks like a storm shelter. Oh, hey, I wonder if Dorothy's family's down there. Auntie M, Auntie M, are you down there? Auntie M, Auntie M, let me in. The tornado's coming. Oh no, no, Auntie M. Look at this, another fireplace. Man, how'd you like to be the chimney sweep in charge of that? Right. Sure, I think Santa Claus, a fat Santa Claus, could probably fit down that thing. Look at that. It's massive. And look at these foundation stones. Isn't that cool? Sure different than the way they build foundations these days. But anyway, I just think this kind of stuff is just so intriguing to me. And then of course you got the cannons. Bear with me here. I know it's going to be a little bit of a walk, but fun thing about I'm walking over to the cannon so you can see that up close. Fun thing about being in artillery is I just enjoy the camaraderie of working with like a small unit of people, and you really get to know them well, and you're involved in this highly choreographed cycle that you go through of firing the cannon. It's actually, they're igniting black powder is what they're doing. You don't want to kill anyone with that shrapnel or cannons bouncing across the ground, taking legs off. But anyway, here is a cannon. Look at that thing. There is a Civil War cannon. So down here you crank that thing and get elevation, and so you'd control the height, and you push these things, or the horses would pull them, and there you go. There's the cannon. There's where all the action happened. There's the killing machine right there, right out of that thing. Can you imagine being in a field and using Napoleonic tactics where you just line up in a line and you wait, and then these things just come exploding at you, and the guy next to you gets head blown off or leg amputated, and you just hope to God that you're not the next one. I mean, it would just be horror upon horror. Can you imagine the shell shock? I mean, I went through kind of a shell shock just with some stuff that went down at the school I was at before I retired. But can you imagine the shell shock of having that thing aimed at you? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, anyway, I'm kind of coming to the end of this little tour. I wanted to make a really well done video, and I'll do that some other time. But it's like I couldn't wait to show you this awesome place. And there's other places like this throughout Arkansas and Missouri. So anyway, here's another sign. It says, "Vulnerable in victory." It was the fiery end of the best day of Earl Van Dorn's 20 years as a professional soldier. Bone tired from the jarring of a week-long ambulance ride and still feverish from pneumonia, the Confederate commander lay down here in the side yard of Elkhorn Tavern amid the wreckage. There's Elkhorn Tavern. So we're kind of right here in this perspective. Amid the wreckage of the day's battle. Because he now controlled his enemy's sole supply line, General Van Dorn assumed he had the Battle of Elkhorn Tavern won. No one yet knew that the rebel wagons bearing food and ammunition for the next day's fight were hopelessly out of reach. Again, those of you military know, if you don't get the supply train, the army ain't moving. The army, what's the saying? The army moves on its stomach. And then down here you got kind of what was going on. So March 7th, March 8th, and then midnight is when this was happening, so 1862. So these are Confederate soldiers in this painting. And this guy that looks like Custer. Kind of looks like Custer. Kind of looks like a Union guy because he's wearing blue, but apparently he's not. At midnight, 2 young Texans brought word to Confederate headquarters that Generals McAuliffe and McIntosh had been killed early in the Leetown fighting. Now, I was just over there, and those are 2 of the names on that tower. Okay. They took orders back for their entire division to march through the night to rejoin Van Dorn here before sunup. So anyway, that's that. That's the Elkhorn Tavern situation. So anyway, I'm gonna get on my bike and get moving. I got like a quarter mile, half a mile to go. I'm almost finished the parking lot. And if I'm there and I see the Union guys, because they're doing infantry training right now, including some of the guys I worked with last week in Oklahoma, maybe I'll just take a few pictures with them. But anyway, I'm heading back, and I'll give you another report here shortly. Hey, it's me again. I'm really at the end. I just went down this road. It was a great ride. It's just a nice stretch, slightly downhill. I was able to pick up speed. And let me just show you sort of the wide expanse of what I'm looking at here. So you can see some cannons, and this apparently, there's a lot of cannons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 I'm looking at. And there's more back there. And there's some others spread out in other places. But, and then you've got this little visitor area here. It says, the beautiful charge. That beautiful charge I shall never forget, with banners streaming, with drums beating, and our long line of bluecoats advancing upon the double quick, with their deadly bayonets gleaming in the sunlight, and every man and officer yelling at the top of his lungs. Eugene B. Payne, Captain, 37th Illinois Infantry Regiment. And you can see this, so this would have been March 8th in the middle of the morning, maybe 10ish or so, 9, 10. You can see sort of this, the Union battle line stretched about a mile across the field. Oh man, it is cold. It's like, I just said, it's actually 31 degrees, but man, with the wind, I feel like my hands are just freezing. I'm gonna put my coat around my hands a minute, just a second. Oh man, it's cold. I took my gloves off so I could handle this camera phone, but I swear it feels like it's 15 degrees with the wind. But anyway, it's this is where it says, when the bugle sounded the charge at 10 a.m., standing here were 10,000 Union men, an entire army visible from one place. During the Civil War, such a sight was so rare that its terrifying grandeur seared itself into the memory of every man present. I'll bet it did. Can you imagine? And over here, this is about this guy. Here, you can see his face up there. It says, "Dat de Schwat Sergeant." I saw General Siegel sight one piece and sent a shot at the rebel guns that had driven us back. I went tearing in among the men and horses, killing and wounding both, and then exploded in one of the caissons. Placing his glass to his eye, I guess that means his spyglass or his little telescope. Placing his glass to his eye to note the effect of his shot, the general said, "Dat de Schwat Sergeant, just put them right in there." Because he's, that was my best German. Sorry if you're from Austria or Germany, but that's the best I can do. It says, General Franz Sigel ordered the Union gunners positioned here to concentrate on first one Confederate target, then another. 2 hours of methodical massed cannon fire shattered enemy battle lines and morale. Pea Ridge marked the first time this practice was used effectively in a Civil War battle. And then down here it says, Franz Sigel learned how to handle artillery as a young officer in Germany. Sigel, the second highest ranking Union officer in the Army of the Southwest, worked his way among the lines, moving from cannon to cannon. And that's what we do. We're artillery. And see this thing here? You dip that in water and it kind of makes sure that everything's out and not burning in there. And then there's another thing called the worm, which is like a corkscrew, and you scrape out any debris that's left in the cannon. I was doing that. I was doing that last week. But anyway, isn't this awesome? I mean, first of all, it's a wonderful place to come and ride your bike, because I think I've had two cars pass by, and it's a stinking Saturday. I don't think anyone wants to come out in the freezing cold wind. The poor guys up there doing infantry training. 3 of them were with me last week. They must be cold. I don't see them out. Maybe they're gone underground. Maybe they're doing it inside or something because it's so stinking cold. But if I get up there, I'm hoping I see some of them in their uniforms, because I think they're supposed to be here till 2 o'clock. But you know what they might be doing? They might be learning how to pack powder into little. You have to pack the black powder into these little wads of paper tightly, and then that goes in your musket, and then you put like a cap on the firing mechanism where the firing, where the trigger goes, the firing mechanism, pin, whatever. And then when that cap makes a little mini explosion, kind of like a cap on a cap gun, really, and it makes a little, it helps the stuff explode, and then you have a boom coming out of your gun, but there's no ball that comes out of it that rips into someone's flesh, because that wouldn't go over so well in a reenactment. I don't think they'd let us do reenactments if people's flesh were torn and legs were blown off. But anyway, this is it. This is the place. Look at how vast it is. I just love the fact that they've preserved this much land, because there's no way, there's just no way that you get the scope of what a battlefield, a Civil War battlefield, is like unless you're there, unless you see it and it's preserved. So kudos to whoever, Department of the Interior, or whoever way back then decided, hey, let's preserve these places so people can know the awesome nature of what went on. When I was talking to those Hispanic folks back there, one of them said, I'm really thankful for the sacrifice of these people. Of these people. It's interesting to me that they saw the Civil War, or they view the Civil War as something that was fought for them. But when you think of it from a perspective of, obviously if you're a slave, you're free. But as a Mexican or a Guatemalan, to view the Civil War victory as something that benefits you, it's interesting, isn't it? I just find that interesting, because they didn't know a lot about it. I was kind of filling them in on what Gettysburg was and so forth. I don't know a lot about Mexican history. They were kind of alluding to some independence thing with Durango, because they all seem to be from Durango, Mexico, and I have no idea. All I know is Durango, Colorado. That's all I know. There's a lot more for me to learn at 62, but man, they're telling us not to go to Mexico right now because people get murdered down there. So I don't even know if and when I ever will go to Mexico. I've only been to Tijuana because I grew up in San Diego, and Tijuana is kind of that over the border little thing you do. And I did camp once on the border with Boy Scouts, but I just haven't been a Mexico guy. I don't know. We went to Hawaii. We've never been to Cabo San Lucas. But anyway, I need to cut this short and get back in the car and get warm, because my hands are freezing. So I'll say over and out. Bye.